everybody, and welcome to episode 94 of All About African Violets. All About African Violets is musically sponsored by Ted Yoder. You can hear and purchase his awesome music on his website at tedyoder.com. It is also available from iTunes. Hi everybody, how are you? Come on in to the sunroom. It is a sunny, I'm looking around, it's a sunny Saturday morning here in Chicagoland. A nice day, finally. It was cold again here this week, literally in the 50s. Very, very unusual for the middle, really almost the middle of July in Chicagoland. To have the temperatures be in the 50s is kind of crazy, but I don't know, I'm kind of enjoying it. We've had a few more rainy days. I know other parts of the country are so dry, and we have so much water. All the gardens here are absolutely gorgeous. My cousin is a master gardener, and her garden is phenomenal. Anyway, come on in, sit down, relax. I want to touch base right away about the iPad issue that some of you who use iPads or Apple devices, other Apple devices, are experiencing with WordPress. You know there was a problem with WordPress. They did an internal upgrade, this is what they've told me, and it jammed up all the episodes. They fixed that, but people were still having a problem with iPads, viewing on an iPad. I was not able to view on my iPad. I checked it. So I have remained in constant touch with these guys at WordPress, and initially they were saying, well, we can't replicate this problem, you know, it's working here and we're checking it. Well, over the last few days, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Other people have been calling and emailing and messaging and saying, there's a problem. We can't view things on our iPads. So I think, you know, since now they are getting a lot of complaints, they have since come back to me and said, okay, we are hearing this from other people, and now we think it's an issue separate from the original issue. So I don't know, for those of you who've been watching a long time, you can remember when we had a real problem with me getting the podcast to iTunes, which actually turned out to be my operator error. But sometimes stuff happens, technical things occur. I have no control over this, guys. I am staying on top of WordPress and hoping that this will be, if it's not already fixed, that it will be fixed very soon. So again, thank you for your patience, and watch on your computers, on your Windows devices. Let's go right into tips and treasures, because today we're having a kind of a question day. We haven't had one of those for a while, and you know, I've kind of gone back through the comments on the episodes since I rebooted the podcast in June, and I've got some great questions, one of which I think is a little bit lengthy, and so we're going to handle that one first. So you will recall that last week during the Look at What's on the Stands, I happened to point out that Sweet Sam, which is a trailer in the guest room up on that top shelf, was looking a little yellow, and that I was going to check the description in First Class 2 just to be sure of what it was. And I want to remind you right there, because remember, we don't use the photos, and it's so hard not to use the photos. You don't use the photos in First Class 2 to decide what your plant should look like. You use the description that's written. The official description of a plant is what we use to decide, what it's supposed to look like. So, for example, as judges, when we're judging a show and we have a question about a plant, maybe none of us on the panel are familiar with it, we will look it up in First Class 2 or in the master variety list. Oh my gosh, they don't call it that anymore. But I can't think of the name at the moment of what they call it, and they've called it that for years. But we use the description, not the picture. And the reason we do that is because growing conditions are so different in all parts of the world. And water, light, fertilizer, potting mix, those all can have an impact on how a plant actually looks. So I did go and take a look at the description, and the description for Sweet Sam was that it is the leaves, the foliage is medium green, so really not supposed to have a lot of yellow. And I had, you never know and we've talked about this before, you never know what care a plantlet received. If it came to you as a plantlet, which this did, you don't know what kind of care it received before it got to you. So you only know your own consistent care in your own conditions. So I made, I looked it up. You'll notice that when we get to look at what's on the stand, you'll notice that I have begun to groom off those yellowed leaves, and that the new growth is really quite lovely and a beautiful medium green. And I was like, okay, so since it's been here, it's growing the way I think it should grow. And I got a comment from Lori in Maine about Sweet Sam on the podcast, on the Facebook, oh, for heaven's sakes, on the website page. And she says, Sweet Sam, I have a theory. Wonder if you can sweeten Sam's disposition. Repot it in a bigger squatty pot. Remove outer yellow leaves and pamper a bit. Repot it up ahead of schedule. And since it's a trailer, give it extra room out of the solo cup early. First class photo looks like a nice medium green. No yellow. And so I responded to that because there is more than one way to grow a plant, guys. You all know this. And actually, before we go any further, I want to remind you that what works for me in my conditions, this is something I probably haven't reminded you of in a very long time, what works for me in my conditions may not work for you in yours. The things that I share with you on the podcast are generally accepted principles of growing. They're principles that I've learned throughout my growing career, and they work for me. And for me, they have worked in two different distinct conditions, in Southern California and in Chicagoland in the Midwest. But, there is more than one way to grow a plant. So I responded to Lori on the website page. I keep wanting to say the Facebook page because we've been posting so much about the problem with WordPress there. I responded, Lori, thanks. The new growth is closer to a medium green, so I'm grooming and giving it a little more time in my conditions before doing anything major. And the other thing that I will share with you is I treat trailers the same way I treat a single crowned plant until they bloom. I don't do much out of a solo cup until the plant blooms for me and I see if it's blooming true. And once it's in, and if I want to keep it, then I make a decision. Okay, I think I like this blossom. I like how it looks. It's already, we know it's blooming true. I'm going to grow this plant on and see if it begins to shape up for show. Well, I do the same thing with trailers. So that's why I responded as I did, saying that I was going to leave it for a while longer and, not do anything major to it yet. And Lori responded and said, I want to ask Joyce what she thinks. There's a lot of growth, but we don't know your potting date. Was it a starter plant from a recent show or a recovery baby plantlet back from the edge of disaster? Now, Annie, this is not a standard. Consistent care in your conditions, and she put that in quotes, might need a helping hand. So I did ask Joyce. I did go. I sent Joyce the messages and said, here's my thinking, and this is what I'm doing. And just so that I just have here in my notes so I don't forget to tell you. You'll recall that I didn't have any plantlets, small plantlets, before I went to National. So anything that you've seen on the stands, the leaves, the plantlets that are growing, those all arrived here right at the end of May, right after National, and most of them were potted up on the 1st of June. And in fact, I have Sweet Sam right here, and you can see, here's Sweet Sam, 1 June, and you'll notice already that I've taken a lot of the yellowing leaves off, and you can see very clearly there are two distinct crowns. That might be a little harder to see, but there are two distinct crowns so far, and the new growth in the center looks great. It's a beautiful medium green. Everything's coming through. Still some of these leaves on the outset here, on the outside, you can see that there's some yellowing going on. Generally speaking, when you have yellowing or haloing like that, that's a nitrogen issue. It's just not picking up the fertilizer and utilizing it the way it really needs to. And now, guys, I got to set this back down, and I don't want to set it on the stand because this plant is still truthfully in isolation. So excuse me while I put it back over here and make sure that it doesn't fall off that little ledge where I set it. So it did come home with me as a plantlet from convention, and it was repotted into my own mix on June 1st. And again, I have no idea what kind of care it received before it got to my house. That's something you should always keep in mind. You don't know what happened with a plant before it got to you. You only know what you're doing and your conditions. And I have a tendency to take a much more conservative approach. You guys know I'm not big on major chemicals. I'm much more a wait and see kind of person where my plants are concerned in particular. I want to give them time and space in my own growing conditions before I make any major decisions about them. And as I mentioned, most importantly, I want to see if this plant is going to bloom true to its written description before I spend a lot of time, energy, and shelf space growing it. So nothing really comes out of a solo cup until I've made that decision. And as I mentioned before, there is more than one way to grow a plant, and particularly there's more than one way to grow a trailer. So I did ask Joyce, and this is what she responded. She said, "The Sweet Sam certainly looks like the new growth is healthy and developing properly." I sent her photos as well, guys, so she could see it clearly too. "Trailers are in a special category in which there are a number of options for how to grow it on. Many growers, including me, choose to watch a trailer for a while to see how it grows and develops. Semi-miniature plants may be bush growers, which form many tight crowns and look just fine in smaller containers, or they may be true trailers with longer spaces between the leaf axils. The latter are often good candidates for the Japanese method of growing and are replanted into ever-increasing shallow trays to accommodate the massive growth. Since not everyone has that much space, even a true trailer may be grown nicely in a smaller, more traditional container and pruned regularly to keep a nice form. Looking at Sweet Sam, I'm not sure I would do more than remove the yellowing leaves right now. I don't see enough evidence yet that it would benefit from the Japanese treatment, and I don't think it will suffer if it stays where it is. But that's my style of growing. Lori might well have more room and a different plan that would work out just fine for her. Hope that helps, Joyce." So Lori, I hope that helps answer your question. And Sweet Sam will be staying in his pot for a little while longer, and we'll see how it goes. That was a really good question. Now, Rob Ayotte, Rob, I hope I said that right, asked he said maybe share some tips on growing multi-crowned larger plants. What leaves to take and when so the crowns don't fight? Do you start multiple plants in a larger pot? Well, I promise, as I have promised before, guys, it's just taking a little bit of time. I will be filming some work with the trailers in my collection, grooming them and working with them. But Rob, this is important and important for everybody. You guys will remember that when we're growing for show, there can only be one African violet in the pot. Trailers are multiple crowned plants, not multiple plants in a pot. So, and I know that can be kind of confusing when you see, for example, down in the basement, my Streptocarpus, my Texas hot chili, where I have 3 plantlets in the pot. It is acceptable, based on the AVSA rules for show, to have multiple what they call the other gesneriids. Those are the cousins to the African violet, like Streptocarpus and Calumnias. Those are the 2 that I grow the most. It is acceptable to have more than one plant in a pot for those types of gesneriids. But to grow African violets for show, it's only one plant in the pot. So I just want to be sure that you guys know that and remember that. John Langford asked, I'd like to ask, when you restarted your crowns and leaves, you did not use any kind of rooting hormone or Clonex. Clonex? You can tell I don't use it. I was wondering what your personal thoughts are on that and why you choose not to use them. John, truthfully, I have never found the need to use a rooting hormone. And this goes right back to there's more than one way to do something in the African violet world. Plenty of people do use this. I just have never found the need to do it. And again, I don't use a lot of chemicals, and the rooting hormone is an additional chemical that you would use. And then John goes on to say, lately I've lost more leaves than have survived, and I was thinking about trying them, meaning rooting hormone, especially for the chimera bloom stalks that just don't want to take for me. I will tell you that I have never personally been successful at propagating from a bloom stalk. I have tried it multiple times, and perhaps that would be a great application for rooting hormone. But for me, it's just not something that I've had any interest in doing. And as I said, with leaves and the plantlets and the other plants that I grow, I don't find a need for it. But experiment with it. Give it a try. But if something you said though is kind of giving me an idea, and I would ask you how heavy is your potting mix, or if you're using something different to root your leaves. When I first started growing, I used 50-50 perlite and vermiculite to root leaves. That was kind of common, where I was living in Ventura, near Ventura at the time, in Santa Clarita actually. And I belonged to Ventura Club, and a lot of people, that's how they started their plants, and that's where I learned, so that's where I started. And I found, it was kind of a pain. You had to have one thing of this and one thing of potting mix, and it was, a lot of space. So, you know what? I think it was Daryl Hoover who said, Annie, just use your regular potting mix that you use and try it with that. And I did. And I didn't notice any difference at all. So everything grew just the same. So I don't use anything separate anymore. I use the same mix that I used for my plants to start leaves and to grow baby plantlets. Now, the mix I use, the potting mix is, I've said this before, it's the Sunshine Mix. I get it from Gary Makita at Gary's Out of Africa in Portage, Indiana. He does have an online webpage, and I'll link to that for you. But I also cut my potting mix about 50-50, 60-40 to 50-50 with perlite. So it's a very light mix, and it works really well for me in my conditions. So Linda said, I am an African violet growing novice. I am one of those people that just throws water at my plants. LOL. I love your podcasts. Thank you. I have learned so much in a few short weeks. Now I have to go back and fix as many plants as I can. Wow, I have made every mistake in the book. Oh, Linda, every one of us has made every mistake in the book, and that's how we learn. It's totally okay. And speaking of books, if you're a relatively new viewer, you might not know my top 3 books, and those are the AVSA Handbook for Growers, Exhibitors, and Judges, which is known in the vernacular as the Judge's Handbook, but you'll notice that the title is for growers and exhibitors before it's for judges. It is a true handbook. I would recommend that everybody have this on their shelf. I have read it cover to cover many times, and not just because I'm a judge and have to study it when I take a test. Particularly when I was a newer grower and really learning, I used it for a lot of stuff. Another book that is a tremendous reference is You Can Grow African Violets by Joyce and Kent Stork. Joyce and Kent used to be the beginner's column writers for the magazine these many years ago, and they took all of their columns and crafted, not all of them, but many of them, and crafted them into this great book, which is also available from the AVSA. And it's also, if you happen to speak Russian, it is available in Russian. Those are the 2 of the top 3, and the third one is Pauline Bartholomew's Growing to Show. And it was truly my Bible when I was a beginning grower. I used it for everything. I've read it a million times as well. And I have the new updated version. I still have the old version, but this is something, a wonderful, wonderful resource. So those may be some of the books that may help you on your journey to becoming an even better grower. I hope that helps. Janice says, hi, I have a question about potting on my plants. I have some that are in 3-inch pots and have already bloomed for the first time. Now I know what the flowers are like. Now that I know what the flowers are like, my goal now is to get them to grow larger. Should I just bud them and put them in 4-inch pots even though they haven't really outgrown the old pots yet? Or should I wait a few more months until they look too small for the pots they are currently in? I know when I separate babies and pot them up into 2-inch pots, they seem to grow quickly. I was hoping to get the bigger ones to do the same. Okay, I did answer this on the website, and I said you can push plants to grow larger. Many folks skip the 3-inch pot altogether. I know that Kent Stork skips that step and goes right from the 2-inch pot to a 4-inch pot, and you can do that if you're going to. But if you are going to pot up, yes, definitely just bud, because you want the energy to go into the roots and the leaves, not into blooming. My feeling is that since they are in the 3-inch pot already, you've already potted them into that, I'd leave them there a little while longer and let them grow and move on before moving on to the 4-inch pot. I just don't see a reason to disrupt their growing cycle again, since you've really recently repotted them. You don't have to wait 6 months, but just watch them. You're going to know when it's ready, when they're ready to and they are going to grow pretty quickly in that 3-inch pot, and they'll be ready for a 4-inch pot sooner than you might suspect. So, excuse me. One last question, and it's from Danelle. And Danelle says, violets are definitely the gateway plants to the Gesneriid family. And she is correct. Now that I have a whole passel of cousins on my stands, where can I get the info I need for growing these guys for show? I know they appear in AVSA shows, but not sure how to find the rules for growing and showing. Well, another great question. The rules for growing and showing, I'm going to bend over. I used to have like a tray here. The rules for growing are in the AVSA handbook. They're on page 64, and the scale of points is there. Everything you need to know for how we have to judge them when they are in an AVSA show is here in the AVSA handbook. We use what the Gesneriid Society has set up for it, how things are supposed to look and what they're supposed to how they bloom and what they do. So let me set that down. The really great place to get that information is from the Gesneriid Society, because they don't focus only on African violets the way the AVSA does. They encompass that whole group of plants in the Gesneriid family. So they have great publications. They have a magazine. You can join them just like you join the AVSA. They have conventions, they have shows, and they have chapters all over everywhere. And in fact, I happen to know Danelle in real life, you guys, and Danelle, they have a chapter in Kansas City. So that may be something that you want to look at. And I want to share one other book with you guys. This book is, I'm just going to take this tag off. It says 1976 on it. This book is called The Miracle Houseplants. It is absolutely out of print, to my knowledge. It's not available any longer. You would have to look for it on eBay, which is where I found this one. And my understanding from my friends and colleagues who do grow a lot of the other Gesneriids, and in fact, I think it was Dale Martins who told me that this was a really great resource, and she is extremely well known in the other Gesneriid world. As you guys know, she's a hybridizer not only of violets, but of Streptocarpus and plenty of other, I think Syningas, plenty of the other Gesneriids as well. And she has a great deal of knowledge in this area. This book is called The Miracle Houseplants. It was written by Virginie and George Elbert, and it's all about the Gesneriid family of plants. Now, Dale told me forever ago, and this book is so old, guys, that this book, I'm looking at the back of it, it cost $6.95 back when it was published. And I know that there is an updated version, but I was told to get the 1976 version. And so actually I had only been able to find the later version. And then my friend, this book has great historical and sentimental value to me, because my friend, the late Joan Halford, who was a wonderful grower and was from South Africa, she and I shared a love of books, and when she was downsizing and moving into a retirement community, she bundled up all, you guys who have been watching a long time will remember this, she bundled up all of her books and sent them to me from South Africa, and it was unbelievable when they arrived. And I have since shared some of those with Joyce, but this book was one of the ones that Joan sent me, but it was originally Barbara Elkin's book, and Barbara gave it to Joan, and Joan gave it to me. So I was absolutely thrilled to have it, and I let my other copy go because I had this one. So Danelle, you might want to take a look on eBay and look for The Miracle Houseplants by Virginie F. and George A. Elbert, E-L-B-E-R-T. And you may be able to pick up a used copy there for not too much money. So, woo, big, long tips and treasures section. Great questions, you guys. I hope that that was helpful to hear some answers and things. We haven't done that for a very long time, so I've been a talking head this morning for you. And now it's time to go and take a look at what's on the stands. I'll be right back. Well, here we are in the guest room, and we're taking a look at what's going on here. Everything is looking kind of great. I can see this is lamb's ears, and it's a trailer, and it is just starting to sprout some extra crowns there, and that's kind of cool. Dolores' Chantilly lace looking good. Happy trails. Looks like it. See, this one looks like it might be kind of the real trailing variety. We'll see, rather than a bush. This is Watermelon Bay, looking good. Superman, I did some grooming. Here's Sweet Sam. Still a few of those slightly yellowed leaves there, as we talked about. But you'll see that it's got some extra crowns that are starting, and that the new growth is all a beautiful, beautiful medium green. And you know, I just don't take all the yellow ones off all at once. They're not hurting anything at the moment, and I'm just continuing to let them do their thing. This one is RS Mavka, and this one is EK Sedoy Okeen. All right, and over here are the leaves. I took the lid off the dome. You can see there's a lot of condensation here going on, and that's normal. Nothing really happening too much on this end. But as we walk around, we can see that here is Jersey Girl Trail. You remember last week that was the first one? Look how much has sprouted off all 4 of those leaves in just 1 week. This is the second one. See it right there? That is green. This is Granger's Wonderland. I got this as a this one feels a little like I don't know if it's going to make it, but that one is sprouting. I took a couple leaves for safekeeping on that one. And this one I just noticed. This is species S. pendula Kazare. They're Kazare. So that one's growing. And everybody else is just doing their thing, just taking their time. Oh no, look, this one's growing too. Oh, I just saw this one. This is exciting. I think, wait a minute. Oh, maybe not. I think that was just a piece of perlite. Oh, well. Maybe it looks like there's a bump there, though. Maybe there's something coming in the next week. We shall wait and see. Then down here on the second shelf, you'll notice there are pens that have been sitting here. Oops, that one's on the leaf. I propped the dome open, and in fact, I did it earlier this week, and I feel confident in these now that these can be out of the dome. And I'm going to get them their own little saucers and let them grow, and we'll see how they do. Everybody's looking pretty good here. This is Mount Red Fuji, and this is Crystal Air. This is the one last week. Remember, I said the name wrong. So those 2 leaves are gone, and it's growing. It's doing its thing. This is Dance and Trail. Hopeful for that one. This is the actual plantlet of Granger's Wonderland. And this is Paula's PB&J, looking very, very good. This is Orchid Trail. And this one, I think, is a Jersey. I think it's Jersey Jazz. It is. It's Jersey Jazz. And it's got, I looked there, the center looked like it might be gone, but it's there. And this one is Jersey Lilacs. And this is Panochka. This one is Ace of Diamonds. You'll notice it's been groomed a little bit this week as well. Oops, sorry. And this is R.S. Viscount. This is Morozhnia Vishna. I think some people call this one Frosty Cherry. And look, we're getting a leaf that wants to be tucked under there, so I'm going to have to watch that. And you'll see this one has a little bit of that haloing as well. These are the leaves that were here in place before it came to me. And you can see, again, then in the center, the newer growth is much more solid green. This is Dresden Doll. This is another trailer. And I'm thinking that this came from the same place that Sweet Sam did. So that is quite a possibility. This is Rolling Dark Waters. That's just sort of kind of hanging here, doing its, kind of taking its time. I'm watching that one carefully. It's one I've wanted to have back in my collection for a while. And of course, there's Jersey Snowflakes hanging out, waiting for me to take it downstairs and actually repot it. And now we've got a third shelf. And you'll notice I've taken the lid off here. And you'll also notice that although a couple of these are still reaching up, nothing is reaching up except for that one, the way that it was under the dome. So who is that? Optimara Yellowstone. All right, so we're going to have to encourage that one to lie down a little bit more, but everybody else is looking pretty good here. Let's go down to the basement. Here we are, down in the basement, and wow, look at DS Black Magic. It really does look almost black, doesn't it? Wow, I really like this one, and it's got plenty of other little sprouts coming, and I recall this one, once it gets going, has usually more than one blossom. In fact, see, here's the next one coming, and it definitely has more than one blossom going to be on it. So, wow, really beautiful. This is Texas Hot Chili, just kind of hanging out here. Looks like it might need a turn. There we go. And Angela, also just kind of hanging out. Nothing going on yet. Now we're going to zip this way over to the potting bench because this week, oh my goodness, I really wanted a trailer that Libby Glambaki at Bluebird Greenhouses grows, and it's called Rolling Pink Cloudburst, and that's it right there. And they didn't sell this year at National, but she said that she had it, and I waited till she was back from, they had a beautiful vacation, and I put in an order for some plants, and so I ordered 6, but Libby sent a couple of bonus plants with, so I have some work to do down here, and they are all a good size. Guys, most of these are in 3-inch pots. I mean, these are really good sized plantlets. So, and they all look pretty darn beautiful. This is called Sapphire Halo, and it's most of the things that I got were vintage variety plants, and it's one I've wanted back in my collection since my Southern California days. I'm crossing my fingers that it will grow well for me here. We'll see how it goes. Let's go upstairs. Oh, we're back up in the sunroom. You can hear that buzzing. That's one of the lights on this stand buzzes. I turned it off when I'm filming, when I'm trying to speak to you. But everybody here looking kind of good. Here is My Sensation. Both of them now have bloomed and bloomed true. I'm happy about that. And this is Cajun Swamp Trail blooming true. Happy about that. And this is Cajun's Code Blue, also blooming true. Very happy about that too. Everybody else just kind of hanging out. Still kind of crowded here. Guys, I've got to get rid of some things here. I'm going to have to, I'm going to have to clear off this bottom shelf and put a fixture there so that we can, I can use that space. Just kind of a good look here. Everybody doing pretty well. See, look, this is a Calumnia, and you see it's got multiple, each one of these is a separate plant in this case. Most of them, I will be pinching it, that forces it to bush out, but you can have multiple plants in the same pot for the other Gesneriads. All right, hang on, and we'll go take a look real quick over in the window. Well, here's Cajun's Cherished Hope, just hanging out over here, looking good. Okay, guys, that's the look at what's on the stands this week. I'll be right back. More babies, woohoo! It's so exciting. I know Danelle mentioned that in her comment, actually, I didn't share that piece with you, but she had mentioned that the leaves that she got at National were also starting to have little mouse ears and babies coming up there. And you know what? That just never gets old. It just never does. It's just so fun. You're like, oh, hot dog, it worked. And I remember the first time I put leaves down, my club member said, you can do this. And I'm like, I tried doing that, a long time ago. Of course, I did it wrong the first time I did it way back when I was in college. And of course, they rotted. And they're like, no, you can do it. You really can. Just need to, give it another try. And I remember doing it. And once it worked, I was like, I was so amazed that I'd been able to do that. And you can do it too. It's great. It's great fun. All right. Time to get the bail money ready. But guys, there's nothing on the AVSA website for me to share with you now until September. So nothing happened in there, and I will continue to look, though. You never know, things pop up. But it is summer, and in most places of the country, it's hot. And not always the best time to have a show in the hot July, August part of summer. So that means that it's time to keep moving forward. I can put my notes down now. It's time to keep moving forward. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope that the question discussion was helpful for you. I think it's always good to go over the basics sometimes and reminders of things, and that's really what we did this morning here. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for the reviews, star reviews and ratings on iTunes. Those help so much raise the podcast up to where people can find it. It just really is helpful. So thank you very much for that. I hope your days this week will be filled with all the things you love. Good growing. I'll see you next time.